Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Expat Odyssey. In this video today, we're going to discuss how to thrive as an expat living abroad. I'm putting together this video for you because there's a lot of people that are wondering uh, what do you really have to do to prepare to move abroad? There's a lot of uncertainty that goes into it for a lot of people just with the initial thought of going abroad. And I've had people expressed this to me where they were wanting to know, what can you do? What are things you have to keep in mind? So today in this video, we're going to have a bit of a presentation, kind of consider it kind of like a webinar, and we're going to get into it. So let's go ahead. All right. So, as I said before, the title of this video is How to Thrive as an Expat Abroad. What are we doing here today? This is going to be a guide to help you get an understanding of how to achieve success and fulfillment while living abroad. Okay, the introduction. Moving abroad offers new opportunities, a fresh start, and a new culture, and that's very true. If you're coming from the United States and you're wanting to try something new, this is really going to be a breath of fresh air. You really need to find a place that is going to resonate with you as a person. You're going to need to be able to find a culture that you feel that you can align with. That always helps whenever you can have a culture, a part of the world that you kind of feel closer to. Something that you can feel that you would identify with to some extent. I mean, that could just be mere values. Uh, Success requires planning and adaptability. I took 2 years before I actually pulled the trigger and got on the plane and flew off to Southeast Asia. And a lot of that has to do with you got to plan your finances. That's critical. You have to plan your finances. You have to plan where you're going to go. You have to do your research and don't always depend on YouTube. A lot of the information that's out on YouTube is going to put on the rose colored glasses and it's not really going to reflect the realities on the ground. So, as part of, planning, what you want to do, you want to make sure that you're joining expat groups. You want to make sure that you're connecting with locals to the best of your ability. That could be joining groups on Facebook, engaging with people on Instagram, and elsewhere. This is just where you really want to make sure that you can have as close of an understanding as to what is the reality is on the ground as possible, but be very careful with YouTube. And I understand I'm a YouTuber. This is just one of those things where I'm going to caution you because it's for the best. Because there's a lot of channels out there, a lot of videos out there where they're giving you an idea about a country or place, and the reality sometimes can oftentimes contrast with what you're seeing on social media. So we're going to be talking about these steps. Follow these steps to thrive abroad. These are proven strategies from experienced expats, and that's true. What you're going to see here is what the average is in terms of people that are able to thrive as expats. And so, master financial planning, create a budget for all expenses, know the cost of living, healthcare, and transportation. Uh, that's a huge, that again, that gets back to what I was saying before. You really have to plan your finances. You definitely don't want to leave without savings. Savings is going to be critical. You're going to need that because there are unforeseen costs that are going to come up. And one of the realities is that if you are coming from the West and you're going into some of these countries, sometimes the costs associated with products or services, it's not always going to be the same as it is for the locals as it is going to be for you. They call that the skin tax. So you have to bear in mind, you have to educate yourself in terms of what it's like on the ground and what you can expect in that regard. In regards to healthcare, I have healthcare with a company called Pacific Cross. It's based out of the Philippines, and I paid over yeah, I paid over $1,000 for my health insurance because I wanted to make sure that while I'm living abroad, that I have healthcare that is really critical. So this is one of the things that you have to plan for before you leave the country, or that you have your healthcare taken care of, because medical emergencies, they can happen. How many times I've been to the doctor since I left, just since October, multiple times. Things come up. You're going to end up needing to get your lab work done. You're going to have a cut or something that comes up where you're going to need to have that taken care of. But a really good thing about the Philippines is that a doctor's visit is only 500 pesos. So it's only around, from my understanding, it's only around $8 to visit a doctor. If you need to see a specialist, that's going to be 800 pesos. So I think that's around $13 to see a to see a a specialist. I mean, that could be an ophthalmologist, for example, if you're a visually impaired person. Yeah, $13 you can see a specialist. It's insane. And let me see. And transportation. See, this is another one of those things. Transportation is going to vary. You're while being in Southeast Asia, you're going to have Grab that you can depend on, and I definitely recommend that you take Grab. It's going to take you from point A to point B. It's just like Uber. I think it's a little more comprehensive than Uber, but yeah, so Grab is a good option. You can actually download the Grab app and see how much it's going to cost you to go from point A to point B. You've also got Move It in the Philippines, which is like a motorcycle taxi service, which I actually prefer. A lot of times when I'm in the Philippines, just because of the fact that traffic in the Philippines can be so crazy. I mean, just to be able to go 5 kilometers, I've experienced this before when I was in Manila. To go 5 kilometers took 3 hours because I was in a car. So if you take Move It, you're going to be able to get around a lot quicker. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Public transportation. This is one of those areas where it depends on the country that you're in. When I was in the Philippines, your public transportation largely is going to be jeepneys and it's going to be tricycles. And the jeepneys are really cheap. Tricycles, be very careful with tricycle drivers because a lot of times they're going to try to take advantage of you. And I'm speaking in terms of the Philippines. Yeah, so basically they'll try to basically take advantage of you as a foreigner. And again, skin tax. So it's one of those situations where you get on the tricycle, the guy tells you a price, or he doesn't tell you anything, and then you get to your destination, and then it could be 3 to 5 to 10 times more than what a local would pay. So be very careful with tricycle drivers in the Philippines. If you need to get around somewhere and you want to move quickly and you don't want to deal with any nonsense, but you don't want to necessarily take a car, take Move It. It's going to be your best bet. So that's just my little bit of advice there. Okay, so save a 6 to 12 month emergency fund. Unexpected costs happen. Be financially prepared. Again, that can definitely happen. You're going to find that sometimes the cost of living that's being reported on social media is going to be it's either going to be an understatement and just an overstatement. It's just one of those things where you've got to be prepared. And when I say that you have to have an emergency fund, it's one thing to have your job. It's one thing to have another source of income. You have got to be prepared for the fact that you don't know what could happen. Um, you know, it- One thing that I have seen and that I've noticed even in the Philippines, not in Malaysia, just because we don't have as many, expats living here in Malaysia as you do in the Philippines. But in the Philippines, for example, you're actually going to come across Americans, people from the West that actually are homeless in the Philippines, eating out of the dumpster, eating out of the garbage. And sometimes it's a matter of the savings. Sometimes it can be a decline in mental health. Sometimes it can also be the fact that people were not taking care of their Social Security Administration documentation requirements. So, that's another thing, is that you have to really be mindful of the fact that Social Security is going to need to maintain contact with you. And but one thing I do want to say on that point is that whenever you are dealing with the Social Security Administration, to the best of your ability, maintain a U.S. address and maintain a U.S. bank account. The reason I say that is that if you have Social Security, understanding that your address is outside the country and that your bank account is outside the country, that can make things a little more difficult because then they're going to want to make sure that you're alive, that you are still kicking. And if you don't have that, if you don't maintain that contact with Social Security, you're going to you're going to screw yourself basically. So maintain uh, contact with Social Security. Make sure you've got your income taken care of. Do not leave without being fully prepared because when you leave your country, nobody's going to hold your hand. Nobody's going to be there for you. So, I mean, you have to you got to be your own Indiana Jones. You got to be able to wrestle whatever comes your way and take care of it because you're on your own. You really are. So you got to have a really fierce sense of independence, and yeah, you just have to be ready to take on the world. It's pretty much what it is. Secure income before moving. That goes without saying. In terms of having a job, definitely have a remote job lined up if you can have that. If you know, you can also do freelance on Fiverr and other platforms. But definitely make sure that you've got income coming in. Yeah, like personally, I've got my own. I've got well, not without getting too personal. I've got three sources of income. So, you know, you just want to make sure that you put everything in place because this is the bulk of you being successful as an expat is having your money straight. So don't play around. Don't play around because you could have a bad time. Okay. Navigating local bureaucracy. Oh, all right. A lot of things come to mind for me when it comes to this. Um, research visa and residency rules. Every country has different requirements. Know them. Yeah, so over here in Malaysia, you basically get a 90-day visa. You don't get to extend it. You basically, you know, you have to navigate that. And for anybody that's interested in more about that, definitely consult an immigration attorney. I can't really provide that kind of advice here. One bit of information I can say, given the fact that I have spent extensive time in the Philippines, is just you know when we're talking about visa and residency rules, uh, the Philippines makes it so easy to live there, incredibly easy. You can basically arrive in the country on a tourist visa. It's good for 30 days. Before your 30 days expires, if you want to stay, you go to the Bureau of Immigration and you extend it for 29 days. So when you do that extension, you can basically pay for the fast track, which I always do because I don't like dealing with bureaucracy and I want to be in and I want to be out. And yeah, you know, I care about my time and I don't like to go through the ringer of waiting in the queue. So basically, after you've got your 29-day extension, before your 29-day extension expires, what you want to do is you want to extend it again. Basically, your extension for that time is now going to be it's going to be a 2-month extension. And before your 2-month extension expires, you're going to want to go in for another extension, which is the 6-month extension. And that's really what's really great about the Philippines is that yeah, you know, once you get yourself worked up to the point of being able to stay, you know, of intervals of 6 months each time, you can stay in the Philippines up to 3 years, where every 6 months you just extend and then extend and then extend. But then, whenever you're coming to the 3 year point in time, you're going to need to leave the country, take a day. You can come fly right back into the Philippines, and you can stay. And a lot of guys, whenever they're living in the Philippines, like how I was living in the Philippines, or how I do live in the Philippines, because I consider the Philippines a base of mine, just because of how easy it is to live there. And I know the country pretty well. I've lived all over the Philippines, been all over the place. So that's one of those things in terms of visas. If you've got your money straight and you don't want to deal with having to go through whole residency stuff, you know, you can just do that. You can just live on a tourist visa, and it's super easy. So let's go down here. Every kind. Well, yeah. All right. So then open a local bank account. This makes payments and daily transactions easier, to a degree. In terms of opening a local bank account, I think that For instance, in Malaysia, I wish I could open a local bank account. I can't at this point, and the reason I say that is that if you're looking to shop on, online platforms that are similar to Amazon, like Shopee, or you've got Lazada, a lot of times your debit card or your credit card from the US is just not going to work. It's just not going to work. That's my experience. So a lot of times, whenever you're actually just in person, you definitely want to make sure that you get cash. You can get it from the ATM. You can Western Union yourself. I really recommend Western Union or a service like that. But you always want to make sure that you have cash. You do. You always want to make sure that you have cash. But in terms of being able to go to restaurants and shopping and everything like that, yeah, you can just use your US debit card. That's what I do. And that it just makes things easier, but for some reason, whenever it comes to online transactions, your international card in Malaysia is not really gonna work that well. Um, Basically, except for Grab, like, if you're using Grab, the transportation, it's like Uber Eats or just regular Uber, you're gonna be fine with that, but, if you do try to do some online shopping, not really gonna work. And that's really a good thing because, you do have scam artists in the Philippines and in other countries where if they're able to get your information, oh, absolutely, they're going to try to put you through the ringer. Okay, learn about tax laws, avoid penalties, and understand your obligations. So, coming from the US, basically any income that I earn, basically it's taxed regardless of the fact that I'm living abroad. So, I do have to still pay taxes. So, you still want to make sure that you're current on that. And again, you really wanna make sure that the countries that you're staying in, that you obey those laws. So that's, I'm not a specialist in that sense, but that's just one of those things where keep your documentation straight, keep your obligations, learn what your obligations are ahead of time so that you don't have any complications. And, let me go back one, because I we are going back here talking about navigating bureaucracy. Um This is a big one. It's a big one because a lot of times if you're dealing with the Bureau of Immigration in the Philippines, um, one thing I'm gonna say is that whenever you're doing your extensions, and I've spent a lot of time in the Philippines, so I can speak to this with just being knowledgeable from experience. Anytime you have an extension for your visa, the visa may not the stamp in your passport may not always be legible, so they're going to provide you with a receipt to show payment for your visa extension, but also your background check in the country just to show that you're not a criminal, that you don't have any derogatory marks on an intelligence aspect of things. You're not a terrorist or anything like that. So you'll have that, which that document pretty much just shows that you're clear to stay in the Philippines and clear to leave. But the deal is that you always want to make sure that anytime you have paperwork, like from the Bureau of Immigration or from anywhere, you want to make sure that stuff is stapled and that you have it organized. Because one experience I'll tell you that I had whenever I was leaving the Philippines this last time is that the immigration officer was telling me that I did not extend my visa, just telling me I didn't extend my visa, and I had been in the Philippines for several months. And if you haven't extended your visa, that can really put you in a difficult situation. You can either just pay the penalties, or you can get arrested and deported. So I mean, it can be kind of selective in terms of how they want to handle it on their end. On your end, your responsibility, the onus is on you to make sure that you save every damn document. You save everything. You have to be your own de facto immigration officer because when you're leaving the country, you need to be able to show that yes, I did extend. I do have my receipt. I do have the document showing that I'm in the clear, and that's how you're just going to need to take care of yourself. And when I was leaving the country this last time, I travel with my documents with me every time. Like, I've got my laptop bag, I've got all my documents, like, FBI background check. I don't have any criminal record whatsoever, Shahada certificate. Just you never know if, when something might happen here. You can say you want to get married or whatever, you're gonna need that. Um, so you have to have your documentation taken care of. You know, you just don't leave any stone unturned because eventually someone down the line is going to find one of those stones, is going to turn it, but you didn't turn it before they had a chance to, and then you're going to get all jammed up. So just make sure that you're navigating bureaucracy safely. Make sure that you're, you know, dotting all your I's, crossing all your T's. That's a really big thing to be a successful expat, and to make sure that you can navigate being in a different country is to just, man, I'm telling you, you have to be highly detail oriented so that you can take care of these things before they flip the script on you. Okay, integrate into the community. Learn the local language, even basic phrases help with daily interactions. And that is so true. And a lot of people in the Philippines, in Malaysia, and in Egypt, because I lived in Egypt before as well, just little things that you say, it makes a big difference. It's not just for yourself, but it's for the locals. It's showing that you're doing what you can to assimilate, to integrate into the society, and just to be you have to be a gracious guest. You do. You have to be a gracious guest, and so it's just a means of showing appreciation. And so let's see, attend cultural events, engaging locally makes the experience richer. So I mean, if you're Muslim, go to the mosque. Or if there's a holiday, go to the holiday. For instance, I don't do this because I'm Muslim, and we're not allowed to celebrate other holidays like in the Philippines, for example, Sinulog. Sinulog is a huge holiday. It's a huge festival. So a lot of times expats will engage. They'll participate, go to just different things related to that. Or if you're just a Muslim like me, it's in the holy month of Ramadan. You can go to the mosque. You can go to. Sorry about that, everybody. We are having a little bit of a technical difficulty here. We've got it sorted through, so let's go ahead and continue. Uh, whenever we're talking about integrating into the community, we want to talk about making friends with locals. This is something that can be fairly easy to do. One thing that I tend to do is I socialize, of course. One thing that I was advocating before is that you look to build connections in the countries that you're going to online, even before you get there, preferably even before you get there. And that can definitely help you when you're landing at the airport. Say your eSIM doesn't work. That's what happened to me when I landed in the Philippines. So yeah, that's one thing that you got to do. This is going to help you. It's going to help you settle in. It's going to help you understand the culture. It's going to help you to build connections. It's something that you can't afford not to do. So going it alone when you're traveling abroad, it's doable. It's not advisable. Okay, getting into respecting the culture and norms. Follow cultural etiquette. Small gestures like greetings show respect. In Malaysia, it's one thing that is common that whenever you're meeting somebody will extend their hand to shake your hand. They'll cup their hands as well. So it's one of those things where whenever somebody's going to shake your hand, it's also polite to cup your hand with theirs as a means of showing respect. So that, I mean, that can also come to learning little things to say, like in Malay, terima kasih means thank you. So being sure to say things like thank you, terima kasih, can go a long way. Understanding local laws, what's normal at home may be illegal abroad. And that's very true. So it's one of those things where the onus is on you to take responsibility to get to know what's going on, like in the Philippines, for example. Some things like they have something called a bastos law. Bastos just means rude. And if you are rude and disrespectful to someone, could be somebody at the mall, could be somebody who's giving you customer service. It could be somebody that's engaging in some kind of catcall where they're basically saying something to a woman that she doesn't like. Well, she can then report you to the police, and you can be prosecuted for that. So these are the things that you have to be on the lookout for. You have to make sure that you are getting to know the country that you're going to. That's just part of the preparation. Be respectful and open-minded. Again, if you're going to be an expat, you've got to be respectful. You've got to be open-minded. A lot of things that I've heard from locals, either in the Philippines, in Malaysia, or elsewhere, is that sometimes people will come in with that entitled attitude. Unfortunately, a lot of my fellow Americans tend to have that entitled attitude, and they lose their patience when things are not going their way. Specifically, like when you're ordering food, it's common in Southeast Asia for you to put up your hand and have somebody come over to take your order. Or in Malaysia, it's common for you to actually write down your order yourself on that little clipboard and the pen that they give you for you to put down your order. So the other thing is that you have to be mindful about the time, especially like in the Philippines. Things operate on Philippines time. They don't operate on anybody else's time. So being able to adapt and to have patience, and really traveling will test your patience. So go ahead and go ahead and be mindful of your disposition, be mindful about how you're going to handle yourself. And again, it's about just being respectful and open minded. So have a backup plan. Keep an emergency fund. Financial security provides peace of mind, and this is something that you have got to plan for, because if you're not planning to succeed, then you're planning to fail. And being able to have a backup plan, say if your job were to fall through, say if your disability check were to be interrupted, given what's going on presently with the changes that are going on at the Social Security Administration, you have got to be able to have a backup plan. So that's going to be unique to you. That's just one of those things where you have to have your own due diligence to make sure that you don't get jammed up. So maintain valid travel documents. Ensure that your passport and visas are up to date. So I've been to the U.S. Embassy where I renewed my U.S. passport, not because it needed to be done that very moment, but because I wanted to make sure that while I'm traveling abroad, that my passport is going to be taken care of. A lot of times you can't even get into a country if your passport is not good for at least 6 months. So, and that's pretty common internationally. You need your passport to be valid for 6 months before you can be granted entry into a particular country. Aside from having your passport valid, from making sure that you've got the right visa that you need to, in terms of making sure that your travel documents are valid. That means that if you're traveling in a country and that you want to stay there, like in the Philippines, for example, that you go to the Bureau of Immigration and file for an extension for your visa. And they're very easy to get in the Philippines. In Malaysia, you have 90 days for a tourist visa. You cannot extend it. So you'll need to work that out for yourself and see what it is that you need to do. But there are people that do work in Malaysia. There are people that you've got all sorts of different nationalities here. People from Bangladesh, people from the Philippines. So just make sure that you plan out your travel documents and what's necessary long before you ever depart your country. So just make sure to have that preparation. Plan for unexpected challenges, which we just covered. So in terms of unexpected challenges, what could this be? For example, if you're leaving the country in the Philippines, you're going to need to make sure that you go through the right procedures to make sure that you have your documents in line to show that you had your extensions or whatever. So it's just one of those things where any number of unexpected challenges could come up. So you have to make sure that you're dotting your I's, you're crossing your T's, that you're doing your due diligence to do the research that's necessary to handle any unforeseen challenges. And again, every country is different. So go ahead and do research for yourself to see what challenges that other expats, that other tourists have reported. So make it your home. Develop daily routines. Structure helps create stability in a new place. Yeah, I definitely agree that developing a daily routine is definitely going to be huge. That's something where you pretty much you're going to figure out where it is that you like to shop, where it is that you like to hang out, build meaningful relationships. So again, this is one of those things where you're going to reach out to different organizations that represent your interests, that you can build relationships with. A strong support system makes life abroad easier. And this is one of those things that I want to hone in on when we're talking about support systems. What I would definitely recommend, if you're somebody who has a disability like I do, being visually impaired, I definitely reach out to organizations that are actually on the ground. I've done that with the Philippines. I've done it here in Malaysia. You basically want to see what is available, like in terms of orientation and mobility, in terms of helping you to get an idea of how to navigate different countries, navigate the transit systems, and learn the norms for what it's like to get around. And that's going to be a whole other video where I get into what it's like to travel as a visually impaired person in these different countries. Stay flexible and embrace change. That is huge. Stay flexible and embrace change. Uh, where you're coming from, you're going to have a culture. I don't necessarily like to say not culture clash, but culture shock. So that's one of those things where being flexible culturally, in terms of being able to handle different situations that are going to come your way when you're living abroad. Embracing change. Embracing change is huge. When you're living as an expat, your whole life is about change. It's all about adaptability. But this is going to help you to overcome and settle in. So that's what it's all about. You got to make it your home. So give yourself that time. So when we're talking about staying flexible and embracing change, what that means is that you don't necessarily just lock yourself into a lease for a condo, that you're in a city, that you're in a certain area, and you've made that decision just all of a sudden. You know, that's the deal, is that when you're traveling, when you're living the expat life, give yourself some space, give yourself some time in a given location to really feel the place out. Not every place that you think you like automatically is going to necessarily be where you want to live, because you're going to see the pros, the cons. This is all going to get weighed out. So it's one of those things that you really have to be careful about. All right, final thoughts. Success requires preparation and adaptability. That's what it's all about. Preparation and adaptability. And it's kind of like the yin and the yang. You know, you can't have one without the other. With the right mindset, you can thrive. So that's one thing. You just make sure to check your mindset. Make sure to check your entitlement before you leave the country. And also put any bias or preconceived notions, put it on the shelf, because the world is going to expand your mind in ways that you have not conceived of. So just follow these steps to enjoy life abroad. These strategies help create a fulfilling experience. That's what it's about, having a fulfilling experience. So also remember to stay positive and proactive. A good attitude makes all the difference. That's what it's all about. That is what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. So if you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and share. Please share this video if you found it to be valuable. And until next time, take care, everybody.